Welcome to U.S. Citizenship 101. What should every citizen know about early U.S. history? Let's find out. We begin with the arrival of European colonists to the shores of America before the United States was even an idea, way back in the late 1500s and early 1600s. The trip they made across the Atlantic Ocean was long and punishing. Many died just trying to make it here. And for what? Why did those early colonists brave the harsh seas to come to this land? Or, as it's asked on the U.S. citizenship test, what is one reason colonists came to America? There really are several answers. First and foremost, they wanted freedom. Freedom of religion and political freedom. Some traveled to America to escape persecution, while many others came here for economic opportunity. They thought they could make a better living here than back in Europe. Now, these settlers weren't the first to live here. Upon arrival, they met numerous tribes of American Indians or Native Americans who had been here long before any Europeans. And the settlers were not the only group of people to make the trip to America. In fact, some were forced to make the journey. During a period of world history in which slavery was a grim reality and slavery-free societies were extremely rare, slaves from Africa were brought to the colonies, beginning in the 1600s. This practice would plant the seeds of the American Civil War about 200 years later. In the meantime, the mostly British colonists who had come to America became outraged over unfair treatment by the British government. They had come here for freedom, but over time, they felt their freedoms were being ripped away. Not only were the colonists subjected to high taxes, but they had no say, no representation in the passing of those taxes. The British even forced colonists to provide housing for soldiers without consent. Things became so bad that by 1775, the colonists felt they had no choice but to take up arms to defend their freedom. In 1775, fighting between the Americans and the British broke out near Boston, Massachusetts, beginning what we now call the Revolutionary War. For the colonists, victory was far from a sure thing, unlikely even as the war began. If anything, the American Revolution seemed doomed to fail, the fledgling colonies versus the Great British Empire. Still, on July 4th, 1776, representatives from all 13 original colonies met and risked their lives to declare, once and for all, their independence from British rule. Originally drafted by Thomas Jefferson, their Declaration of Independence set forth for the first time in world history the ideal of a nation founded on freedom, on rights given not by the government, but by God. And with it, the colonists proclaimed themselves as an independent nation. The 13 colonies situated along the Atlantic coast were now 13 states united together, the United States, from New Hampshire, New York, and Massachusetts in the north down to South Carolina and Georgia in the south. The Revolutionary War raged for another 7 years until 1783, when, with the Treaty of Paris, the British finally recognized U.S. independence. Against all odds, America had won, and thanks in large part to the leadership of figures we now collectively refer to as the Founding Fathers. Among them was an important negotiator in the war's peace settlement, Benjamin Franklin, a fascinating man who, in addition to being an American diplomat, started the first free library, was the first U.S. Postmaster General, wrote the famous Poor Richard's Almanac, and was the oldest member of the Constitutional Convention. At the Constitutional Convention, delegates from each of the states came together to hammer out the details of the new nation's government. Early attempts to outline our form of government hadn't worked, so it was in 1787 in Philadelphia, representatives wrote what became the U.S. Constitution. This incredible document, the Constitution, still holds and binds us as the supreme law of the land to this very day. It's easy for us today to not fully appreciate how novel, how brilliant the Constitution was with its balance of power between the federal government and the states, and within the federal government itself. These concepts were so novel that even the general public wasn't entirely convinced it was right. It took founding fathers including Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, who together wrote under the fictional name Publius what are called the Federalist Papers to help get the Constitution approved by the 13 states. There is only one person, however, who is considered by many the father of our country, George Washington. George Washington not only led the Continental Army to victory over the British, but he served as the presiding officer at the Constitutional Convention and was later elected to serve as the first president of the United States. He is often described as the indispensable man who did more to create America than any other figure. So, what did we learn today in test prep about early U.S. history? The early colonists came to America for a number of reasons, including political and religious freedom, and eventually fought the British to preserve those freedoms through self-government. Thomas Jefferson was the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, which was adopted July 4, 1776. At the Constitutional Convention in 1787, representatives from the original 13 states wrote the Constitution. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay wrote the Federalist Papers, which supported the passage of the Constitution. George Washington is called the father of our country and served as our great nation's first president. Hey, you made it! Whether you're studying for the citizenship test or simply brushing up on what it means to be an American, you're now that much more informed on the things every U.S. citizen should know. I'm Selena Lewis for PragerU. Can you pass the U.S. citizenship test? Find out now at PragerU.com.